Welcome to Digital Access Day 2026. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We pay respect to the Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land and acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory. So, today is really about one question. As Canada strengthens its digital sovereignty across AI, data, and infrastructure, how do we make sure that access, affordability, and an open internet don't become secondary? Throughout the day, we're going to explore that through a series of practical conversations on AI adoption, infrastructure cybersecurity, and access, and importantly, what all of this actually means for Canadians. Before we get into the program, I want to take a moment to say thank you. First, to the Internet Society Global, whose support through a grant made today possible. To the Toronto Metropolitan University through Diversity Institute and the Future Skills Centre for their partnership in shaping this program. And to TELUS for sponsoring the fun part of the day, the cocktail reception. I also want to thank our volunteers for their time and support in making today happen. And now a quick word about the Canadian Internet Society. We are a national, not-for-profit organization focused on ensuring that the internet in Canada remains open, accessible, and resilient. Our role is to bring together government, industry, academia, and civil society to help inform practical and balanced digital policy solutions. None of this work would be possible without our volunteer board of directors, many of whom are here today. Thank you for your time, your expertise, and your continued commitment. And finally, a special thank you to Alessia Matsos, who isn't here, but did a tremendous amount of work in helping to coordinate and promote today's event. So now it is my pleasure to invite Karim Bardeesy, Parliamentary Secretary to the Ministry of Industry. In his role, Mr. Bardeesy works closely on Canada's innovation and industrial policy, including the development of our AI and digital capacity. His perspective helps connect the broader policy direction with practical decisions that shape how Canada builds and strengthens its digital economy. We're very pleased to have him here to help set the tone for the day. Mr. Bardeesy.
It's all. Oh, no, it's okay. I'm not good, you see. There was a steep. Try to sound. It was a steep fall there. Do you mind if I do this? Oh, no, that's it. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the warm introduction. Minister Solomon sends his regrets, but I'm happy to be here with you, including a number of people I know from current or past life in the think tank world, in the responsible tech world more generally, and at a place with an organization that has such a storied history of doing the work of an open internet. I note your title, Digital Access Day, Access, Autonomy, and the Open Internet, and I think it's very timely at a moment when the polls towards openness without restraint and closed internet, the closed internet or closed systems are pulling us in these opposite directions potentially. I see a really exciting agenda. I see some panelists and some folks in the room today about what's happening. It's a very busy day. Wednesdays are a very busy day in Ottawa, so I apologize. I'm going to do the thing that I think elected officials who speak at events hate to do, which is speak and then leave. But I did want to share a few perspectives, and I know you're very good hands with Mark Shawn, the Associate Deputy Minister and lead on all things AI in government. Your agenda today is a really exciting dive into some of the key issues that are going to be, I think, in the rock face of not only the space that's not one of those two poles, but the rock face of the really practical challenges that Canadians at large and perhaps folks who you teach, who you mentor, who you connect with, are the things that people want to be guided by. A bit about our agenda, because this is a bit of a different week in Ottawa. because we now have the makings of a majority government through the by-elections and other things that have happened in the House. And so I just want to share, first of all, the Prime Minister's perspective about the way we intend to operate, which is very consistent with, I think, the way we have been operating, which is to work with all parties and solicit all perspectives in Parliament. I know there's a special interest in some perhaps forthcoming legislation, and what the opportunities to engage on that are through the parliamentary process. And that commitment remains. I'm on the Standing Committee of Industry and Technology. We're doing an AI study right now. I see some former and future panelists here on that study. And the relationships that I have, for instance, with my the Bloc Québécois critic Gabriel Saint-Marie and the conservative industry critic Raquel Dancho are strong, and there's a common interest. And actually, in that AI study in particular, there's actually quite a bit of alignment around the broad direction away from those really troubling poles that we need to be going in. The Prime Minister also said a couple of days ago that the work ahead demands collaboration, partnership, and ambition to deliver at the speed and scale Canadians are counting on. And so that's a story about government direction around what you often hear about building projects, getting shovels in the ground, usually physical shovels in the ground. And there are some physical shovels in the ground related to perhaps some of the issues here today. But it also is true of the internet space, of the virtual space, that we need to work with scale and speed and ambition, yes, to deliver the strategy that Minister Solomon and Mark Jean have been working on, but on the whole set of issues that are forcing us to move fast because the technology is moving so fast. And so I guess in my presence here today, in our work, you have that commitment that we will continue to engage with this community. You have my personal commitment. I will continue to engage with this community. I know the Parliamentary Secretary, Talib Nur Mohammed. I know ministers who have related pieces of files here, like the Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser, the Minister of Public Safety, Karim Sangri, Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and Heritage, Mark Miller, Global Affairs Canada, Minister Anand, trade on the trade side with Dominic LeBlanc on the U.S. trade agreement side. I think you have our commitment to be engaged, and I'm here today in part to let you know that I can be one of those people who can help do that connection, do that plug-in, because it is an all-government approach that we need on some of these very gnarly issues. But I'm happy to be in an environment here where there are trusted hands with this, again, as I mentioned in the opening, this organization, the people who come to this organization, the funders of this organization, and the supporters and the next generation of youth who come up through this organization, other related organizations, have a very strong commitment. And that history is really important in this moment. When we encounter, this may be going to be oversimplified, but as I was reflecting on the agenda in this moment and thinking about Kevin Kelly's blog post about 15, 20 years ago about the internet as a giant copying machine and what that means in this moment with the AI-enabled tools around that, this era of universal, ubiquitous, practically free information is something that's upending, obviously, our politics, our public policy, our relationships, our economy, our institutions. You have seen the framework, I think, that Prime Minister Carney, you may have seen the framework Prime Minister Carney has laid out with Minister Solomon, and Minister Solomon is now speaking more about this in advance of the release of our strategy, AI for All, with three main ideas around this: protecting Canadians with a variety of interventions or considerations around trust, around content veracity, and the regulatory and legislative tools that might be available for that. Yes, through the strategy and any legislation that come out of that, but then more generally through things like our investment in a AI Safety Institute, our investments in some of the responsible tech work that we do through research. I'm very excited, for instance, as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry, to be associated with probably the world's largest talent attraction strategy for the most impactful scientists and researchers across the globe. We believe our strategy is the biggest in terms of size and a potential impact, recruiting approximately 100 university chairs and hundreds up to 1,000 or perhaps more doctoral, postdoctoral fellows. And the amount of interest in that program as it relates to the issues of concern to the internet society, the kinds of people who we hear are being recruited to take on potential positions once they go through the process, the university process, and the tri-council process to work on issues related to an open internet, I think. And maybe some of those people are your collaborators, very excited about the prospect of having yet more talent, some of the people who you might be working with already, having those people come to Canada and work on these issues. In some cases because they feel they can't work on these in the US, and in other cases or from other countries, but also because of the magnetism, the pull. I know that this community is one that is attracting talent to it. I'll be at Democracy Exchange at Toronto Metropolitan University in OCAD in a couple of days, and that was a place where some of these early conversations happened. So that's the protect kind of lens on the AI for all strategy that you'll be seeing. There's an empowerment lens too. The moral imperative that the technologies that are available and the work that you do towards reducing inequality, towards creating the positive forms of connection, results in a need to focus on the people who are a bit more downstream from the people in this room. And that means a very bread and butter look at AI adoption that can help, a very bread and butter look at the kinds of tools that Canadians generally need to have in their workplace, in their education systems. Again, as a federal government, we don't control public education directly at the K-12 level, but we can have a role in influencing some of this work, and definitely the post-secondary level and in the job training level. And so you'll see, I think, in our forthcoming strategy, very strong, both a worker focus and an impact focus on the really positive, meaningful applications that can help improve our economy, as well as the life chances of those who are participating in this new moment. And then we also have a build lens, which is about, again, the building of infrastructure. We know that we were behind, for instance, on AI compute infrastructure for quite a significant amount of time. We know that no country can be 100% sovereign when it comes to that no country can be 100% sovereign when it comes to artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence economy. But we have to be very intentional about where we can build up further sovereignty. And I know that's been a long and historic area of interest of this organization. So we will need to continue to get your advice and feedback, as well as your participation in the programs that are to come around sovereignty, data, software, and infrastructure. I think with that table setting, I really invite you to have a very engaged set of conversations today. And I'm very happy that Mark Shaw, in whom we have a lot of trust, is going to be speaking to you next. And just, again, the commitment that the Prime Minister made about that collaboration, commitment, and speed, I know is true of Minister Solomon and his work, and is true of us at industry more generally in our government. So I look forward to staying connected to you all. I really appreciate the chance to be with you today.